All right, Cliff in the doorway too, hanging out with Todd from Immortal Thrall. First of all, just want to say thank you very much for doing this. Really been digging the record, been listening to it a bunch. I hope everything's going well to this point.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. I'm glad you're enjoying the album.
Cool, cool, cool. So the first thing I kind of want to talk about a little bit is the tags that this album is getting is kind of ridiculously funny to me. Uh,
Sure.
I don't think either one of us are truly kids. So when we get like subgenres of subgenres of subgenres thrown in, it's kind of funny to me. But I kind
Yeah.
of want to kind of ask you. So at the heart of it all, to me, this is kind of I would say a post metal record. Okay, like at the root of the whole beast. But I've noticed that people throw around black gaze, death gaze, progressive post metal. Well,
Yeah.
where do you feel like you fit into this world, or you don't feel like you fit into any of it? What's your thoughts on the subject?
For me, it falls very much into a post black metal kind of world. I mean, that was always sort of the intent with it. The approach to this record was a weird blending of post rock and black metal, because those are two areas of music that I really love,
Nice.
and I'm highly influenced by. So it was the initial. I think the record fell more into the black metal side of things than it did the say post rock side of things, to say the least. But the initial intent was to be a blending of both of those worlds. So for
Okay.
me, I mean, I don't mind the black gaze thing. That doesn't bother me at all. I've been a huge fan of shoegaze stuff for years, as well as like bands like Mole and Alcest and all that sort of thing. So,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, I mean, it makes sense, and I see the connection there. So that doesn't bother me in the least. Honestly, I don't care what anybody calls it, so long as they're listening to it. It doesn't matter to me what
Right.
the genre is. I don't care at all. So
Right. Cool. So it's funny that you say you feel like it's more of a black metal record because when I explain it to friends of mine, this is how I explain it. I know it's probably not going to be your interpretation, but it's just what I hear so I can get people to listen to it. I say,
sure.
imagine going to see a band like Russian Circles, all right? And then them playing stuff like Slow Dive over the speakers, all right? And
Okay.
then at the same time, the opening band is some really kind of avant-garde black metal band. I said like that's kind of what I hear when I do it, and and they kind of get it real quick. But I
Mhm.
feel like you have a strong post rock element. Like I almost feel like if Russian Circles was black metal, it would be your band. Like that's kind of the vibe that I feel.
Well, I will certainly take that. So, yeah, I've seen Russian circles. I don't know how many times over the years. Yeah. So, yeah, and honestly, the the connection with Russian circles is kind of funny that you mentioned that, because I am highly influenced by the Kansas City post rock scene, being
Mm,
specifically Shiner, old Russian, old not Russian circles, but Riddle of Steel,
yeah,
who the drummer from Russian circles was in Riddle of Steel at one point. Um, yeah, I mean, all of that stuff is in my brain perpetually, because I just love it. I think it's
cool.
fantastic music. I've always thought it was very underrated,
Hmm.
in a lot of ways. But yeah, Shiner, Life and Times, all that stuff. Like
Yeah,
I love that stuff. So it's definitely an element, and it's definitely it's in that music, to say the least. I mean, it's yeah. And like I said, I
cool.
went right in with that intention, to be perfectly honest. So
You can hear it. You can hear it emulate through what you do, and I think that's what makes it a special record where you can't just pinpoint a certain style on it. There's so many different things going on, and that's kind of the reason why I love Russian Circle so much as well too. Is you can't pinpoint them either. Are they a metal band? Are they a post rock band?
oh
Are they
yeah.
just a heavy noise rock band? Because like they can go into all different directions too. So
Mhm.
very cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So here's probably the difficult question for you. I hear a ton of prog influences as
Oh
well
yeah.
in your music.
Oh yeah.
So no,
Yeah.
this that wasn't the hard question. The one is who is your major influences on the prog side? Not prog metal, but on the prog side.
No, I get you. I got it. And yeah, there's a few. I'm a huge King Crimson fan. Like, I love King Crimson, but probably the band that's had more of an impact on me musically over the years in the prog genre is Genesis, like early Genesis. Like 70 to 75 Genesis with Gabriel. I have spent many, many, many hours listening to Steve Hackett, as a guitarist who's a genius as far as I'm concerned. And quite frankly, if you go back and really listen to early Genesis, you will hear some elements of black metal in that music that they were unintentionally working on and didn't know what they were doing. I mean, like the super tremolo guitar, all of that sort of thing is in early Genesis. So I love that band. I love Peter Gabriel. I love all of that stuff. So that would probably be the biggest influence. I mean, I obviously love Gentle Giant and yes, God, how many hours have I spent listening to Close to the Edge? I mean, and Chris, for that matter, is also a big prog head. Both of us are way into that stuff, and have been for as long as we've known each other. So it's there's definitely some progressive. Like I said, I wasn't necessarily setting out to write a progressive metal record or to do anything like that necessarily, but I think the influence just creeps in regardless. And there's one section on that record that is very, very, very Crimson influenced specifically. I'm not gonna say which one, but there's a very, very much an influence there in one section of that album. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah. I was going to ask you if Peter Gabriel was a reference point because even though your vocals are much different, you have a very kind of forward-thinking vocal style, and that's kind of the Peter Gabriel side that I see. But musically, early Genesis, I totally hear. So when you said that, you did my heart good because like I was like, I'm not crazy. I'm not the only one that's there. Okay, good. So the next thing I kind of want to talk about is, so it's just you and Christopher on the record, right? And then like a session drummer, or?
Yes, for the most part, yes. The intro was created by my buddy Dylan Hawes Glenn. I am not a classical guitar player, and I really, really wanted that for the intro to the record. So he recorded that completely on his own, and then obviously we manipulated it as far as some sonic things that we did to it. Other than that, it is me, it is Chris, and then it is Jack Blackburn, who did all the drum work on the record. He's been involved in a number of bands. He played on some early Inferi records. He's played on Scafe. I think right now he's playing with Clitoris.
Okay.
Familiar with that band? Kind of tech death type stuff. But Jack is a phenomenal drummer and absolutely just nailed what I wanted. I had the early demos for this record had programmed drums.
Okay.
That I had and kind of presented that to him, and I was like, "This is the framework. Go nuts." So, and that's basically what he did, and did a fantastic job with it. So, but yeah, he's heavily involved in black metal, heavily involved in tech death, but just a phenomenal drummer. And then outside of that, Mike Lowe, also of Inferi, as well as Oubliette, who I also played in Oubliette for a while, did a solo on, he did the solo in A Path to Fire.
Nice.
That's him. He's also in the video for that too. And then Emily Lowe, also vocalist for Oubliette, did the vocal of Maria when she actually speaks on the record.
Mm-hmm.
She did her vocal part. So, but other than that, no, it's all Chris and I. I played all the bass, most of the guitars, with the exception of the things I mentioned.
Sure.
And then Jack on drums. Yeah.
Cool. So I kind of want to talk about digging a little bit deeper into tones and sounds on this record because this kind of intrigues me. You add elements of things that you typically wouldn't hear in a extreme metal record, as I'm gonna
Sure.
just so let me tag it right now. But I love the hypnotic and almost atmospheric elements and tones that are on it. So and they're different on every song. They almost give the mood of what the song is going to be. You can tell in maybe the first 2 or 3 minutes, this is not going to be a happy song. This is going to be more of an upbeat song. This is going to be a faster song. Did you purposely have specific atmospheres and kind of tones for each individual track?
Yeah, I mean, with working through recording, and then the nice thing about this record is the way I made it was vastly different from anything else I've ever made, which means I basically would write riffs, record those on my phone, and then sort of arrange the track while I was demoing it in Logic. And then because I was taking it from such that sort of post rock element, I was very liberal with effects that I was using on guitar. I was finding some, kind of interesting tremolo things and some just stuff that you would not necessarily typically hear on, like you said, a black metal record. Delays, and I mean, obviously you'll hear delays and stuff, but on black metal records. But yeah, just playing around with phasing and all sorts of different things that I was messing with because, again, I come from that background of sort of post rock as well as metal.
Mhm.
I've kind of straddled that line for years. Like I'll be in a post rock band over here for a while. I'll be in a metal band over here for a while because I love both. So yeah, I was just trying to blend those elements as far as guitar was concerned, while still making it very much, a metal sounding guitar record, I guess is for lack of a better way to put it. But yeah, throwing some elements in there and really playing with sound. I was really going for, especially in the clean parts, which I mean, I think is probably really where you're hitting on more than
Yes.
the distorted parts. Just building atmosphere. I mean, this record to me is more of melancholy than anything
Yes.
else is the word that I would use to probably describe the songs, which sometimes comes across for some people listening to it as almost borderlining on happy, which was never the intention. But because you're playing in that not specifically super dark element or realm, it's, to me, the whole thing is an element of sadness running through it because the
Mhm.
story is incredibly sad. And that was the point of what I was trying to get across musically, is it was furious and sad at the same time. So if that makes any sense
Sure,
whatsoever.
absolutely. Well, I was gonna say, just because it sounds happy doesn't mean it is. Think about all those synth rock bands, those krautrock bands. Think about,
Oh, sure.
think about like The Cure, for instance. Like
Hmm.
they have some of the happiest sounding, depressing songs I've ever heard
Oh, God, yes.
in my life. So it's tonality. Yes, that's exactly where I was trying to head with. Was on the cleaner parts. You can hear specific phasing and tonal shifts, and it's really cool the way it is. But jumping into that. Uh, Now, this may take you left field, and this may be a better question for Chris than you, but I'm still going
That's all
to
right.
ask.
Yep.
So, I hear a heavy synth pop element in this record. And
Hmm.
the reason why I say that is the synths on a couple songs, particularly, give me that very 80s almost cold wave synth pop kind of vibes as they're layered. Was there any sensibility of throwing kind of that cold wave tone into this?
Not necessarily, no. I mean, as far as the synths were concerned, at least not that I know from Chris's
Okay.
perspective. He never mentioned anything like that to me. With Chris, I will say, like, the songs were basically demoed, and then I gave them to him. I was like, do what you do. And I didn't give him a lot of direction at all because, for one thing, I trust what Chris's taste level is, and I trust that he knows that what he does, it's usually going to connect with me because he and I are on the same wavelength as far as music is concerned for the most part. I mean, not always. We have our differences here and there, but generally, I know that he's going to get where I'm coming from and know what to put on there. He did surprise me here and there. I mean, there were like Take the Cold specifically, that bouncy synth thing on that track. I was shocked when I got that in. I was like, wow. But it was so interesting,
Yeah.
and that was the whole thing. It was like, the way I absolutely work all the time is, does whatever's happening benefit the song? And if it benefits the song, that's all that matters. You know what I mean? It's and it may be left field. And in this sense, it absolutely was left field. I was like, this is
Okay.
not what I would expect to hear on a black metal record at all. This is wild sounding. But that's what intrigued me about it, is because it was so different, and it worked. So I don't know that there was any specific synth pop specifically
Okay.
direction there, but I think it was more about experimentation, and that's both of us come very much from an experimental background as far as seeing what we can do that's different and interesting to us, things that we want to hear on a record. So
Cool. No, that's
yeah.
awesome. So I'm going to expand a little bit on the more kind of pop sound on this record, and I really dig it. Okay, I love when extreme metal bands mix other genres that are not just post rock, that are not just prog. So I know pop can be a dirty word in extreme music, okay, but to me it's not. Okay, because if that was the case, we wouldn't have a band like Opeth. All right, if pop
Sure.
if pop was a dirty word. All right,
Right.
but so I kind of wanted to ask you, when you were writing the guitar lines and layering the guitar lines, were you trying to add like an ugly and a melody at the same time? Because that's almost what it
Yeah.
feels like. It feels like there's two different demons on the guitar. So
Oh, absolutely. Now that is definitely, as far as, I don't know, pop necessarily, but I very much have a melodic, sense to what I do. I like melodic metal. I always have. Like, probably my favorite, really connecting with like death metal specifically, was Carcass. Like,
sure,
and if you know anything about Heartwork, I mean, that is the framework for melodic death metal for all
absolutely.
intents and purposes, and one of my favorite records. I mean, I love that album. I mean, and when I was young, there was them and like Cannibal Corpse and all that stuff, but Heartwork is where I zeroed in and really started to fall in love with death metal, because I was like, this is amazing, and for some people that's blasphemous, I guess, but
It's my favorite Carcass record, so I agree
I
with
mean, I
you
get it. Yeah,
wholeheartedly.
it's so good. I mean, where are there? Is it perfect? No. There are
No,
problems with that record, to say the least. But it's still my favorite Carcass record. Even I've loved the stuff that they've done since. Not so much Swan Song, but it's got its moments. But yeah, I mean, for me, I think that kind of sums up my extreme metal view, so to speak, is heavy but melodic. And so yeah, there's definitely elements of, I wanted it furious and angry, but I also wanted that undercurrent of melody as much as possible throughout the record. So for what that's worth.
yeah, it's almost like an earworm. Like I like that's what I'm trying to
Sure.
say is like you'll hear the melody in the background and not even realize it, and I'll realize to myself that I'm humming the melody. I'm not I'm like not thinking about the whole song, but I hear a certain melodic riff go over and over again. I'm like, okay, that's the part that caught me, and now the rest of the song is what's keeping me here. So like that's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Um, Awesome. I want to talk about two songs in particular that are my favorites on the record. All right.
Okay.
So the first one is The Calling. And the reason why I want to
Okay.
talk to you about this one is it is, to me, and yeah, humbling, whatever, I don't care. It is equal parts hooky and spooky. Like, that is
Okay.
like the best way I can say it. Like, it drew me in and then terrified me at the same time. Like,
Sweet.
so can you kind of talk about The Calling and how that was created? And is that the end result you wanted? Because that almost feels very experimental at times.
Yeah. I mean, it is interesting when I think back on this record and writing it. There are sort of weird gaps there, because it was right in the middle of, I was in Seattle. It was locked down. There was really nothing going on at all outside of, this was what was, I was working, and this is what was
Mm,
keeping me sane, basically. Um, and as far as the way this, I'll say this as a whole, because it's a little bit more, it makes a little more sense on the whole. This record sort of just came, I've said this in other to other people. It sort of just kind of came out of the air. I don't know where this album fully came from. Outside of I needed to write. I hadn't written anything in a couple of years because I needed a long break, quite frankly. And then the riffs just started coming. I've always had to work at writing in the sense of, really having to play. Also, it looks like my video is frozen. I don't know if are you still hearing me?
Yeah, I hear you. No problem.
Okay. The riffs literally just sort of came, and I didn't even have to do a lot of arranging on this record, which is the weirdest thing in the world for me. It was riff, 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 section, riff, section. It sort of just came out. Like there was a little bit of arranging going on, but in general, the songs sort of formed themselves, which is, again, very unusual for me. And it was extremely satisfying, to be perfectly honest, because, I demo it and there it was,
Sure.
So, while I would say that there are some intentional elements on that record, which there certainly are, especially, like I said, in the clean sections, I was really getting into, playing around with sound and playing around with, atmosphere an awful lot. I don't know that I ever approached any specific track as saying, trying to be spooky about it necessarily.
Okay.
It just sort of kind of happened that way. Which, I don't know about you, but sometimes you go in with an intention and then sometimes it comes out completely different than you expected it to. Or sometimes you just don't go into it with any intention at all and you just sit back and go, wow, I like that, how that came out a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of this record was more about that, so to speak. Like you had the mindset of, I want a post-rock meets black metal sort of album. Outside of that, it was literally just about, okay, these are the riffs that are coming to me, and I'm just putting this together to make what sounds like a very cohesive track. And everything else was, I don't know, it was very organic the way this album came together. So, a long-winded way around to say that. So, sorry.
No, that worked very well. The other song I want to talk about, and to me, if there was one song I would play to someone, it would be this track to say, okay, here's the band as a whole. If you want to hear a little bit of everything, this is the one. And it's 12 Long Year.
Okay.
And the reason why I say that is it's got the kind of neoclassical elements mixed in with the atmosphere, mixed in with black metal, mixed in with post-rock. Like it's got all of your elements, but it's almost, after the little introduction piece, it's almost all mixed in at the same time, and you have to really deeply listen to the pieces to hear it. So sure. I kind of wanted to ask about that song in particular, because that one is maybe the most minimally complex, if that's the best way I can say, if I can say it. So
sure, fair enough. Again, one of those that just sort of threw itself together as the riffs were coming along. Less of that was, it's less intentional, I guess, in that regard. Of I wasn't trying to go for, oh, this is a prog section, or oh, this is this. It was more like, okay, these riffs are working well together. You know what I mean? And that's really just the approach. I think what happens with my writing is all of those things that I listen to, and I listen to a lot of music because I am perpetually fascinated by so many aspects of music and so many different types of music, that things just sort of do what they do, when I'm writing together. They'll come out as whatever those influences are, sort of pushing their way through the music. So I think that's, again, less intentional, more just, years of listening to all that stuff, and it just kind of pushing its way into my writing. So yeah, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. So I want to talk about you working with Trepanation as well. Disclaimer: we are both signed to the same record label.
Yes.
There's no weird oddity about it. I like his music. That's all it's got to do with it. I just have to put a disclaimer in there so people don't think, oh, you're just talking to people that are on the record label you're on. But how did you how did you hook this all up with Dan, and how's it been going so far?
The Dan connection came through Chris. Chris is in a group called Clawing, that is also on Trepanation recordings, excuse me. So there was a connection there to begin with, and then basically Chris just, he already had that connection there with Dan, sent the record over to him, say, hey, what do you think of this? And Dan was like, yeah, let's do it. It was pretty much as simple as that. I mean, he sent over the contract, we went through it, everything was very agreeable. It's been a great experience. I mean, Dan is a fantastic guy. Dan loves music, and he likes a lot of different types of music. And for me, that's appealing, especially being on a label that is not pigeonholed at all. I mean,
Right.
there are so many different types of things coming out on that label. And all of it quality. And that's one of the things that I was so impressed with Dan and Dan's ethics and the way he works. I mean, he just celebrates music and he likes to put it out. And yeah, did a great job with it. I mean, I think the CDs and the tapes came out beautiful and sound fantastic. So, yeah, I got no complaints whatsoever. It's been a really good experience.
Yeah, I was going to say it is a diverse catalog, and the two of us are prime examples of this.
Yes.
I'm doing doomy harsh noise, and you're doing a progressive post metal record, and it's on the same label. That is not a typical world that I would ever say. But I've noticed also he works with a lot of like-minded folks. Like they have to have the same mentality that he has. If they don't, he immediately jumps away from it, which is very cool. So
yeah, no, and I think that's very accurate. I mean, just his Instagram isn't any indicator of that. Just like I'm constantly liking whatever the random thing is he's listening or
same here.
Cool, So yeah, he's just a really good dude, and he's been a great ally to work with on this record, to say the least.
Nice.
So, yeah.
So I don't know how many reviews you've seen. I don't know how much feedback you've gotten on the record, but can you give me one example of one that shocked you and one that you kind of really disagreed with? Have you gotten that yet?
It's been interesting. It's sort of a mishmash of things on some of these reviews. Some of them have been really, really complimentary, and that's fine. And I have no issue with criticism by any means. I think the one that sort of bothered me a little bit was it mentioned this record being a celebration of martyrdom. And I thoroughly disagreed with that particular description, just because, no, this is definitely not a celebration of that by any stretch of the imagination. If anything, it's just highlighting how terrible it is.
Right.
It was, I guess, maybe that was misconstrued by how I talked about Maria, in the sense that I felt she was rather a heroic individual, because she stuck to her guns, throughout basically her entire life, considering the hell she was put through on a regular basis. But it was not about martyrdom. And it's definitely not. That's just one aspect of it. I just needed to tell her story because I felt like it was relevant to today's goings on in the world, but no, that particular phrase just kind of hit me like, what? Like, no, it's certainly not a celebration of that. That's one piece of this story, and it's actually, just the very last piece of it. So,
right.
I don't know. Yeah, that was the one thing. I mean, otherwise, that individual had some interesting comments on the record. Again, some I agreed with, some I didn't. That's fine. I wasn't mad about it by any means. It was just an interesting perspective, so to speak. So yeah, people are going to take what they take from it,
Yeah. No such thing as bad press, my friend. No such thing as bad press. Get the word out there. Somebody's going to see something they like it. I have sold more music on people hating it and saying it's the worst record ever, and someone has to listen to it to disagree with them. And I love it. It makes me laugh more on that than anything. So, why don't you talk a little bit about the story of the record? Because it's a damn interesting one. So I think people should really know that it's a loose concept, right? It's not an actual 100% concept. Okay.
Well, it's very much a concept based on a real life individual who lived through the very end of the Spanish Inquisition. It was one of its last victims. I did extensive research on this particular individual and this story. I mean, looking at Cambridge research papers for that matter.
Gotcha.
I mean, like that sort of thing. So, it's basically an individual who was sort of loosely involved with the church just through her parents and her brothers and sisters and all of that sort of thing. And she got sucked into it and abused, basically. And I mean, it's a story of abuse, the story of power abuse. It's all of that, and it's granted the church is an example used, but it's not really the prime focus that I was going for.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of a broader conversation about abuse of power and about exploitation of minorities and yeah, for all that, that's basically what it's about.
Yeah.
At least as far as my viewpoint is concerned. And yes, I'm telling a story there, but that's the undercurrent and that's the underlying subtext, so to speak. So
what I was going to ask is, moving forward on the next albums, are they all going to be different thematic themes, or are you going to go more to just writing songs, or like how is the future progressing for the band?
Well, Chris and I have actually talked about that, and yeah, I think the goal, and this is going to be kind of difficult, but the goal is to find another story worth telling. As difficult as it was to write this, the outcome of what it became was highly satisfying as far as I'm concerned, because yeah, I had some sleepless nights over this. I was very wrapped up in the story. I was very wrapped up in telling the story, but ultimately it was rewarding to get it out there and I like concept records too. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, it's not the first one I've written, actually. I mean, I've prior bands, I've done stuff like that in the past, but I've always kind of been obsessed with concept albums. I find them interesting. I mean, just going back to like Pink Floyd's The Wall or whatever, and I find them as a writer rather satisfying to kind of tell that sort of linear story. So yeah, likely the next one, but it's got to be something that's important and that I connect with, sort of like this, in the sense that I found a reason to tell that story. And so the next one will need to be the same sort of thing. So yeah, be very intentional.
Okay. Perfect.
Whatever it happens to be.
No, perfect. That's great to hear. So let's talk about the video for the title track. All right. Sure. How did that come about, and how do you feel the presentation at the end overlays the band's vision, ideas, feelings? So.
The video came about. Basically, Malcolm Pugh from Inferi shot that video. He's been doing more and more video work lately for artisan era bands. I obviously know all those guys and whatnot, having been a band that was on artisan era at one point. Yeah. So it made sense to work with them because I was seeing what was coming out, and it was all really, really good looking. As far as the ultimate outcome, I'm thrilled with the way it looks. It's really what we talked about, and it was executed pretty much flawlessly as far as I'm concerned. The goal and intention of that video was, I don't know if you're familiar with like old Anathema videos from back in the day, or My Dying Bride, or all of that. I grew up listening to Peaceville bands, and specifically that sort of gothic doom stuff that was coming out of the UK. And for whatever reason, when we were pitching the idea of this video, I had that sort of in the back of my mind, like I really would love this to kind of look like that. So that's basically what we went for, was a kind of an homage to those amazing videos that sort of sucked you into the world of whatever band it was. So yeah.
That is so funny that you say that, because I was going to ask you if you were a big fan of My Dying Bride, because it reminds me very much of, I don't know how many thousands of times I've watched those Peaceville videos, but the Turn Loose the Swans video. Like,
oh yeah.
like that was the vibe that it totally gave me when I watched it. So
that's what I wanted. That's exactly what I wanted. Yeah, I mean, I remember the first time I heard Turn Loose the Swans back in the day. That record, yeah, I mean, I just is unreal. I mean, that and Angel in the Dark River specifically, those records are just both phenomenal as far as I'm concerned. And you know, Anathema's Serenades and even Eternity. Oh God, how many times have I listened to Eternity over the years?
Eternity is the record that made me realize Anathema was so much more a band than I ever thought they were going to be. Like that was the record that, okay, they can do anything. Like they literally, yeah,
they did do anything. I mean, that is down to go and find yourself at Weather Systems and go.
Oh God, I mean, so good.
Oh yeah, I can say nothing but good things about Anathema. I love that band. So
same here, my friend. But yeah, the whole Peaceful thing. I'm 49, so I grew up that whole world too. I was in a Death Doom band for 15 years, signed to several labels, played with My Dying Bride. So like it was nice. Yeah. So like, you know, literally like, you know, matter of fact, it was November's Doom, My Dying Bride, and myself on that bill. So like, yeah. Woo, well, Paul and I are friends of 20, oh God, almost 30 years now. I am an old man. But like, yeah,
not far behind you, buddy.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, but yeah. So when you say that kind of stuff, I feel that vibe coming from you. So very cool.
Nice. Very cool.
The next thing I kind of want to talk about is there anything on this record that you would want to change now that you've heard it?
You know what? I can categorically say no. There's not a thing I'd change on that record, and I'm thrilled about that because that has almost never happened to me in the many years I've been playing music and playing in bands. Usually, there's something I'm dissatisfied with. But no, I know some people have talked about the mix. They're not happy with where the vocals sit in it. I like where the vocals sit in the mix. It was that we went back and forth about that quite a bit as far as when the mixing process was going, because to me the vocal is just another instrumental part of the tracks. I did not want it super up front, because I don't necessarily like records with vocals that are sit right in your face. You know, I wanted it more blended in. So for me, yeah, things are exactly where they're supposed to be. I talked to Mike. He's like, I'd maybe remix it, but I'm like, but that's also just the thing of it's never done. You know what I mean? Like almost any record you look at, somebody somewhere is going, it's nah, you know? And that's fine, you know. But I'm thrilled with it. I love it every time I put it on. I think it sounds the way it's supposed to sound. It's that nice mix of raw and hi-fi that I like a lot, you know. But no, I mean, we went back and forth quite a while in the mixes of this to make sure we got it where we wanted it. And yeah, and it wasn't contentious either. It was just, let's talk about it. Or, you know, are the drums sitting too high, or, you know, blah, blah, blah. This, you know, the technical boring stuff. But ultimately, yeah, I'm happy with it. I can put that record on and actually enjoy listening to it. And that is in and of itself fantastic. So
nice.
Yeah.
Would you ever want to play live with this project?
The $1 million question. It has been talked about. The issue is it's kind of a massive undertaking to try to get get people to do it, because we don't have a band per se. And I kind of want to keep it that way, to be perfectly honest, because, you know, it's that whole thing of it's a very isolated sort of situation as far as writing is concerned. And I'm happy with that for this particular project. So yeah, it's kind of just a lot to ask a whole bunch of people to learn how to play a record, to play it, and then, you know, no, you're not really in the band. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's just, and then on top of it, we've talked about maybe playing it once, just playing it from start to finish live one time. But again, it's a lot to ask a bunch of people to do that. You know, I mean, it's, you know, people have got their other projects and their other things going on, and it's just like, here, dedicate to learning this entire record so we can play it one time. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not saying never. I'm just saying as it stands right now, it's not necessarily in the cards, and that's okay. You know, been playing in live bands for many, many years, and I mean, I'm still playing in another live band. It's just not this one. So but this is all right. We'll see what happens in the future. But as it stands right now, it's a studio project.
No problem. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is give you a couple minutes to kind of, it's a perfect segue, for you to be able to talk about what you're doing outside of Mortal Thrall.
Sure.
You know, kind of tell the people what's going on, if there's anything else that's coming out that they should know about, because typically the way I feel is if you like a record from one project, you're probably going to like other things the person does. So
Fair enough. Yeah. This has been my main focus for last couple of years. I recently started playing bass in a completely different sort of band called Tape Deck Mountain. They are an established group. They've been around for quite a while. I've got several records out. But I know those guys and have known them for a long time. Good guys, make great music, but it's very much more in the shoegaze sort of vein. Yeah, so just back to playing bass in that band, which has been a lot of fun. It's good songs. I enjoy playing them. It's a little more chill, so to speak, than what I'm normally doing. But yeah, outside of that, that's pretty much it. I mean, it's just this record. One thing I will say, I don't know if you noticed it, a vinyl pressing of Path to Fire is on the way. Very limited run of that, but I'm excited to get that on that particular format. So yeah.
very cool. Awesome. So I guess the last thing I'll ask, and I kind of ask this to a lot of people when I kind of have a vibe thing going, and I feel like we've had a good conversation. So
yeah.
Is there anyone that you would like to work with on the next Mortal Thrall record?
Oh gosh. To be perfectly honest, I have not thought about that. Okay. I really haven't. Obviously, Chris, I definitely want to work with him, to say the least. If Jack is willing to do it, I certainly wouldn't mind playing on the next album, just because his work is so stellar, and did such a fantastic job on it. He's a busy guy, though, so we'll see how that works out. And it's okay if it's not. We'll find somebody else. But outside of that, not really. I have not thought about it in those terms as far as working with other people on this particular project. And maybe because it is so sort of insular, I mean, not to say that I'm opposed to it. It's just there's not somebody specifically in mind that I could think of necessarily that I'd be interested in collaborating with on this project. I don't know. It's, like I said, certainly not opposed, but right now I don't have anyone to answer that with. So
yeah, are there any new tracks being written right now at all, or are you not even at that point because it's such a new record?
There are. I've played around with some ideas, but nothing has really stuck just yet. But that's all right. You know what I mean? It's just like I know not to force things. I have learned that over the years. Don't force it; it will come when it's ready.
Right.
So yeah, there's some riff ideas in here and there, but there's nothing really demoed yet, which is okay. Again, I'm in no particular hurry. It'll happen when it happens. That's one of the nice things I like about this project. I don't feel like a lot of stress about it. Because it will be what it's going to be, and that's okay. So I think once I have another specific topic in mind for what the next record concept may be or what story I want to tell, I have a feeling that the songs will start to flow once that happens. But yeah, we'll see.
Perfect answer to end this whole thing. So Todd, thank you so very much for doing this. Like, literally, I have listened to your album over a dozen times. Like, it's literally something like, when Dan told me about it, I had to take a listen, because again, like you and I both said, I hit the like button on all his damn Instagram things too, because like he and I like very much similar music. You were the band that kind of drew me back into kind of listening to black gaze. I know it's a terrible term, but that's, you know, like, but you literally had me start listening to Alcest again, and you had me start listening to, like, you know, a lot of the obscure stuff out there, more of the like cascadic black metal stuff from the Northwest again. Not Wolves in the Throne Room. I know that's like the first one that everybody jumps into, but, like, you know. Yeah, no, because like everybody goes,
Wolves in the Throne Room.
Yeah. Well, see,
I like them a lot.
See, now we can have a debate on that too. Thanks for doing that for me. I just feel like the last three records have been highly, highly disappointing to me. Before that, they were a fantastic band, but like I said, especially the last one, I feel like they just kind of retreaded all the really good old stuff. Like, that's kind of the way I feel. So,
I mean, I will say that I have not connected with those records like I did, say, Two Hunters or Diadem of 12 Stars. I mean, I don't know if that's me though. You know what I mean? Like, and that's where I've kind of like been confused about it, because I've certainly bought them all. I basically buy anything that band puts out, and I saw them on that last tour, even, for that matter. Yeah.
Oh, they're great live. No, they're great live.
Yeah,
but I just feel like the last record. I know we're going down a rabbit hole. I feel like I feel like the last record is just. Either it was rushed, or it just wasn't fully thought out, or they said we have all these leftover riffs from when people got really pissed off because we made an ambient record. Like, I almost feel that way.
Weirdly enough, and I really need to go back and listen to that album again. My first impressions of the record were I actually really liked it a lot. But for whatever reason, I didn't really go running back to it again, I guess. I think I liked it probably more than the prior records. I liked the ambient record, actually. I liked ambient music quite a bit. So to me, that record was cool. I know a lot of people didn't care for it, but I like Blood Incantations, ambient record. I like those things. But I also listen to a lot of, like, Tangerine Dream and
sure.
Of that nature too. So to me, I really enjoyed the production aspect of the last album, because I thought it was kind of different than what they had sort of done in the past. But again, I don't know. I need to listen to it again or try to go back to it. I don't know. It's a thing. I know where you're coming from though, and I certainly understand where you're coming from. I didn't get, and I haven't for a long time, I guess, really gotten the emotional impact that I got from those early records, I guess. And again, that could be me not connecting with it. That's nothing to say that the band isn't completely throwing everything that they got into it. But I'm not connecting with it, I guess. I have nothing but respect for that band, though. I mean, I really don't, or nothing but good things to say about them. I don't know. It's not clicking like I want it to, I guess, But
see, this is what it's all about, my friend. You and I, all of us music people out there, having discussions about bands we love, about records we don't love. And that's where your record came into my world. It's just another piece of the puzzle of my 35, 40 year plus musical love. Like, and you gave me a record that I love. So thank you very much for it. I will make sure that folks, anyone I can, I'm going to tell about it. I'm always going to talk about it because it's something that I enjoy right now. So again, thank you so very much for the interview, for your time, and you continue doing it, and I'll keep supporting it, and I'll keep talking about it to the rooftops, my friend.
Well, thank you very much, and I certainly appreciate you taking the time to talk to us, talk to me, I should say, and yeah. Also, really much enjoying your record too, for that matter. Just FYI, actually listened to that this morning. So
thank you, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely.
I appreciate it very much. But again, Clint from the Doorway too, hanging out with Todd from Mortal Thrall. It's been a pleasure. Again, thank you so much, and you have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too, Clint. Thanks a bunch.